This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Talia.
Welcome, everybody, to Crimes and Consequences. We're so excited to have you here with us. If you could do us a favor before we start getting into some crazy true crime, hit the like, follow, subscribe button, whatever you normally would do. And
are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, we're going to get into some true crime then.
Before we do, though, everybody should know a couple things about us.
Okay.
We're lawyers. We swear. Sometimes a lot.
Yes.
And we can be pretty graphic with our true crime. So if you don't like that, that's fine. But you will.
You're going to love us.
You're going to love us.
Because we are the best show out there.
So can you quit talking?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's hear some true crime.
I am going to not stop talking because it's my episode.
Okay, let's do it.
Have you ever heard of Arthur Shawcross?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you all about him today.
I don't know who he is, but I have heard of him.
Well, he's a horrible, horrible person.
Of course.
Horrible serial killer.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I'll start with his background.
Perfect.
He was born premature.
Okay.
In the early morning hours of June 6, 1945, at the U.S. Naval Base in Kittery, Maine. I think I said that right. He was 2 months early.
Probably not.
We always mispronounce everything.
That's another thing about us.
He was 2 months early. I was 2 months early.
Okay.
But anyway.
Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. At the time of his birth, his mom, Elizabeth, she went by Bessie. She was just 18 years old. And his father, Corporal Arthur Roy Shawcross, he was 21. 2 weeks after his birth, Bessie took baby Arthur and she moved. She left.
She went up and just...
Yeah, she moved to Waterton, New York, but she only did that. She really didn't leave the dad.
Okay.
She left because he was being deployed. So she went to be closer to family. By 1948, the family had built a small house in a rural area 6 miles northwest of Waterton, near Brownville. Arthur was only 3 at this time, and yet he already was beginning to show signs of some abnormal behavior.
What? Starting fires, torturing animals, bedwetting?
He was a bedwetter, yes.
Oh,
and he talked like a baby until he was about 6. The following year, he started running away from home, which family members just kind of ignored. Yeah, when he was 7. They said, it's just a way for him to get attention. So they just kind of ignored it. By the time he was 8, other behavioral problems began to surface. He seemed to really dislike, kind of hate children younger than himself.
No.
And he would tease them until they started to cry.
That is not that abnormal.
No, he's a bully.
Kids are asses.
That is true. Sometimes. He became obsessed with his sister, Jeannie, and he ignored his other sister and brother.
So he had 2 siblings.
Yes.
He's one of 3.
Yes. He invented imaginary friends, and he spoke to them using strange voices.
And he's 8 doing this?
Yeah, about that.
Okay.
His classmates constantly made fun of him and called him Oddie because he was odd. And he absolutely hated this nickname. All in all, Arthur was a loner whose weird behavior made it really hard for him to communicate and mix with the other kids. He was often seen being alone, like in the classroom. He was kind of ostracized. The kids would be out playing.
Weird.
Yeah, because he's weird. A school nurse remembered him as being troubled, and he constantly ran away from home. He often carried an iron bar with him.
Oh.
He was just a weird kid. Okay, so now everybody's got this picture of this weird kid.
Yeah.
By the time he entered 3rd grade, Arthur's behavior only got worse.
What? He's only in 3rd grade?
Yeah, I mean, he was just a weird kid.
Okay.
And his grades plummeted. He was given a series of psychological tests, which indicated that his behavior was due largely in part to his feelings of inadequacy, rejection. He had a growing hostility, like this hostility that he felt toward his parents, especially his mother.
Was he being abused?
No. Surprise, surprise. He had mommy issues. Regardless of the results of the tests, he later moved on to 4th grade, where he stayed for 2 years. He did not pass 4th grade the first time around. During this time, he ran away yet again, and he was picked up at the Canadian border. I mean, he's like 8 or 9. He's like 9.
Oh, wow.
I know. So by the time he was 9, his home life was no better, and his school was even worse, especially when Arthur's mom found out that Arthur's dad had a whole other family in Australia.
Is this? What? In Australia?
In Australia. Yes.
How does somebody do that?
Well, back then it was easy.
Really?
Probably.
Okay.
It was maybe like the 50s, right?
Okay.
It might have been a lot easier to
Still
do
take
it.
a long time to
He
get
got
there.
deployed out there.
Oh,
and,
okay. I'm being deployed.
Yeah, I'm being deployed.
To Australia again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Exactly. Arthur did his best to stay out of his mom's way, which meant he spent a lot of time at his grandma's house. He said, though, he suffered some sexual abuse.
From whom?
While he was at his grandma's house, he said that his mom, he suffered the sexual abuse he suffered the sexual abuse at the hands of his mom.
Okay, so maybe that was happening earlier?
Maybe. He would say that, you know.
Or is it even true?
I don't know, because we have to rely on what Arthur said.
Okay.
Okay, so
right.
maybe, I don't know.
And we know serial killers don't lie.
Right, never. Never.
Okay.
Right. He said she first began masturbating him and then soon started performing fellatio.
Oh,
on him.
what? So, okay.
He said his aunt joined in as well.
Oh, okay.
So I think,
all right. This is, all right. I'm not saying it's not true.
I know, but
It's
a little far-fetched, but
maybe.
It could have happened.
Maybe.
You know, I'm not going to discount it. As the years passed, Arthur grew even more violent, and he would often beat up the neighbor kids. He just became well known for his explosive temper. He also began breaking into houses. He stole from local businesses. And this is when he started lighting fires. You called it.
I knew it was coming.
You called it.
Knew it.
You knew it. On one occasion, after falling into a river at a family picnic,
Oops.
he complained that his legs were sore. So he was given a brain scan and a battery of other tests to determine, you know, why are his legs sore? But the tests revealed nothing. And that's what his family said. Oh, he's probably doing it for attention. Again, right?
Yeah.
'Cause he always did stuff for
Shit
attention.
For attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Becoming increasingly withdrawn and antisocial, Arthur fell further and further behind with his schoolwork. And by the time he was in 8th grade, he was 3 years older than all the other 8th graders.
Oh, okay.
He should have been like a junior in high school.
8th grade isn't hard to begin with,
I know.
let alone you're 3 years older than everybody else.
Yeah. So he was obviously an outcast.
And way through puberty and all that.
Right. I mean, there's a big difference
Driving, got a beard.
Yeah, there's a big difference between an 8th grader and an 11th grader. By his mid-teens, he was still wetting the bed. And he had...
Check.
And he had almost completely withdrawn into his own little private world. He spent hours walking in the woods where he would talk to himself. He was often seen yelling at inanimate objects and beating the undergrowth with a stick.
Do you have schizophrenia? Don't spoil it.
No.
No.
I'm going to spoil it. No, he was never diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Okay.
He would beat the underbrush with a stick as if he was fighting someone or something that wasn't there. By the time he was 14, Arthur claimed that he was regularly having oral sex with his sister, Jeannie, and his cousin, Linda.
Oh. And his, like, mom and aunt and all these people.
A lot of incest going on. He also claims that he had another relationship with a young girl who lived nearby, and they were caught by her brother. And at the time, he was performing oral sex on the girl.
Okay, that's more believable.
That is more believable. The brother supposedly threatened him, like said, I'm going to tell your parents unless Arthur performed oral sex on him.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Again,
I'm getting really annoyed, but
it's
go ahead.
from Arthur's, his point of view. And it was around this time that Arthur's craving for sex became insatiable. And he continued to have oral sex with anyone, like any chance he could get. That year also marked the period when Arthur claimed to have his first associated violence. Wait, I'm sorry, that didn't come out wrong. That year marked a period of time where Arthur claimed this is when he first associated violence with sex.
Okay.
It began after he was walking home from school one day and he was picked up by a man in a red convertible who supposedly held him by the throat while performing oral sex on him.
Was he kidnapped or did he willingly get in the car?
I think he willingly got in the car.
Uh-huh.
And this is what Arthur had to say about it. He said, quote, "He held onto my balls and sucked me off." End quote.
Oh, I mean, all right. I don't know what to say about any of this shit.
I know.
But go ahead.
This one's pretty graphic. When Arthur failed to reach orgasm, the man anally raped him and dropped him close to his house.
Well, I hope that's not true.
I hope that's not true. From that time on, Arthur claimed he could never reach orgasm without inflicting pain on himself.
On himself?
On himself.
Oh.
Right. The following year, he was arrested for breaking into a Sears department store. Do you remember Sears?
Of course I remember Sears.
They're not around anymore.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago.
No,
I'm not
it wasn't.
That. Yeah, I mean,
I remember Sears.
I remember Sears, of course. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
But he didn't take anything, so he was just given probation. Like, all he did was break in. And
Why? Why break into Sears?
I don't know.
What the fuck is that about?
I don't know. Maybe he just got a thrill about breaking into places. Who knows? For the next few years, Arthur wandered aimlessly throughout life until the age of 19. And that's when he got married for the first time.
He got married.
Yes.
Lucky lady.
Some lucky lady out there snagged him at the ripe old age of 19. The union lasted less than 3 years and produced a son. In 1968, at 23 years old, Arthur went into the Army. And so it's 1968, and you know what's going on at that point. Vietnam War. So he began a tour of duty in Vietnam. Just prior to his leaving for Vietnam, Arthur married his second wife.
Oh, so he got divorced.
Yes.
Got divorced. And he's, what, 24?
Yes. He's
25?
23, 24.
And he's on a second wife?
Yep. Her name was Linda. They had a very brief courtship. Once he got to Vietnam, he was assigned to a unit as a supply clerk. One of his duties was to arrange for the distribution of ammunition, which consisted of him traveling to other units by helicopter. And it was at that point, he later told psychiatrists, that he started going out on fire missions with various companies. Fire missions are when the unit was assigned a specific target and included like when you're supposed to fire on it and how much ammunition you're supposed to use. So if they said, X is your target.
So he's in action. He's out there in action.
Yes. Initially, when he was in Vietnam, he said, he was initially shocked by all the violence, but soon he began to crave the danger of going into the jungle, looking for the enemy. And he referred to himself, this is when he became a predator. On one such mission, Arthur claimed he encountered 2 Vietnamese women hiding guns.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. They were hiding these guns in a hollow tree. He shot one of them initially, and he tied the other one to a tree.
What?
The woman who was shot, she was actually still breathing when Arthur cut her head off.
What?
Yeah, this is what he said he did. He said then he took her head and put it on a post.
What the fuck is this shit?
I know, for the Viet Cong to find.
Okay.
He said he cut off a section of her thigh and roasted it over a fire.
He did that to the one. What did he do to the other one? Was she tied to a tree watching this?
Yes. And he said he ate it, or ate a portion of it. So we have cannibalism.
Wait, he's by himself?
I know.
Where's everybody else here?
Right? You have to question exactly what's going on. He said the other woman, he ended up having oral sex with her, and he raped her before shooting her in the head. And then he said he butchered her body, which I'm taking to mean he dismembered her. Okay.
He's doing it all in the jungle of Vietnam?
Yeah. Alone?
Roasting? Okay.
Where's the guys in his company?
I don't know.
I'm taking the story with a grain of salt.
I don't trust anything he says.
Right. He became an expert sniper who claimed that he fashioned a silencer out of a rubber nipple from a baby's bottle. Can you even do that?
I don't. I've never tried to make my own silencer.
No,
but maybe.
Never.
No.
Ever?
I swear. I haven't. Not yet, but I'm maybe. I don't have a gun. I don't know.
It seems kind of weak to be able to be a silencer, but this is what he said he did.
I don't believe shit this guy says. Go ahead.
He said that allowed him to pick off the enemy without giving his position away.
Really?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't everybody just put a nipple on?
Right. I know. I have no words. So
I'm already annoyed with this guy so much.
Oh, you're gonna hate him.
Oh, boy.
Before this episode's over.
Let's keep going.
Arthur admits he became an animal, quote unquote, in Vietnam. And he found it difficult to control the violent urges that he had that drove him to rape and kill. The enemy weren't the only victims of his sexual rages, as he also claims to have attacked several Asian sex workers, some as young as 11 years old. It's just sad. Yeah, sad, disgusting.
Pervert.
Right.
Pervert, asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Getting really angry.
Yes. When he returned home to Waterton in 1969.
Oh, I bet he was lovely for Linda.
He was a changed man, but not for the good. No. He was continually agitated. He found it hard to relax. After visiting his mother, he went to see his wife, only to find that she had spent all the money he had sent home, and she was seeing another man.
Well, you know what? What the hell was he doing?
Exactly.
I can't get mad at Linda.
No. Soon after, when he was transferred to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, that's where he was to serve out the remainder of his term in the Army, Linda went with him. And it was at this time that
they
I guess they made up.
Romance.
Yeah, I know. Even though she spent all their money and
can't fight love.
I guess at this time is when Arthur began to experience violent flashbacks and nightmares, and he began to physically
of his own action. By the way,
right? He began to physically abuse Linda, which led him to consult with an Army psychiatrist.
Good idea.
The doctor suggested therapy and a period in a mental hospital to try and stabilize him. But Linda was a Christian Scientist, and she was wary of doctors and hospitals, and she refused to sign the commitment papers. So he wasn't able to get that help in the Army hospital.
And he didn't volunteer to.
No.
They were trying to involuntarily commit him.
Yes. Without therapy, Arthur's mental state began to decline, and he became more and more...
to decline?
Okay, he was already in the ascent, so we're just continuing.
Descent.
Sorry, you're right. Descent. My bad.
Up, down, descent, ascent.
Yeah, you're right. He spiraled.
Okay.
He just grew more and more irritated with Linda and her family. In April 1969, Arthur took his anger out by setting fire to a local paper mill, and later that year, the cheese factory where he worked at the time.
A cheese factory?
I know.
I do like the smell of burnt cheese, but...
It is really delicious. You're right.
Not when people could be hurt.
No. I know. I wonder when he did it. Like after hours? I don't know. He was later arrested and convicted on 2 counts of arson and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He served the first 6 months of his sentence at Attica Prison, where 3 inmates allegedly raped him.
Okay. This guy has been sexually assaulted allegedly by...
times, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Arthur claims he later got revenge by beating and raping each of his attackers in separate incidents. Eventually, he was transferred to Auburn Prison to serve out his sentence. In 1971, he was given early release when he saved the life of a prison guard.
Well, that was nice of him.
And the prison guard had been clubbed during a prison riot, which was sparked by racial tension in the prison. He returned to Waterton to start a new life, but it was without Linda.
I was going to say. I mean, Linda can only handle so much.
It was without her. They got divorced while he was in prison. His stay in prison did little for his already fragile mental state, and by the time of
fragile.
Did I say fragile?
Fragile mental state.
Fragile. And by the time of his release, he was in a highly agitated frame of mind, ready to do further damage to anyone or anything that he
fancied. The Vietnam War and being in prison did not make him a better person.
No, unfortunately. It just gets worse. One of my favorite sayings.
She says that all the time to me. And
it gets worse.
When she says it, she means it.
Yes.
It's going to get really, really fucking bad.
It's going to get bad. In an attempt to settle into a normal routine, Arthur took a job at the Waterton Public Works Department as a handyman, and he got married for the 3rd time. This guy he was just, couldn't beat the women off with a stick, apparently.
Okay. All right.
His new wife, Penny Nickel, was a school friend of his sister, Jeannie, and had 2 children from a former relationship. Arthur claims that up until this time, he was still having a sexual relationship with his sister, Jeannie.
I was just going to ask about that, really.
In that she introduced him to Penny because she'd gotten pregnant by her boyfriend and couldn't continue her relationship with her brother, Arthur, any further.
Okay, why? If you're having relations with your brother, what does it matter if you're pregnant?
Girl, I don't know.
Like, there's rules to incest?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. By his recollection, after 5 months, the relationship with Penny seemed to be going great. And at one stage, she got pregnant, but she miscarried. Sometime later, he claims that the marriage came under threat when Penny's father accused him of sexually assaulting Penny's younger sister. Arthur said, he denied all these allegations.
No, it was not me.
But from that time on, Penny's parents spent a great deal of time around the house watching him, probably trying to protect the sister.
So she living with them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Arthur spent a lot of his spare time fishing in the creeks and rivers around Waterton. As a result, he came to know many of the town's children, and he often shared the same spot with them because little kids like to go fishing and everything.
And Arthur
right?
probably liked little kids.
Well, he didn't molest them. Just spoiler alert.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe he did. I don't know.
Okay.
One of his regular fishing companions was 10-year-old Jack Blake, and on one occasion, Arthur had gone to the boy's house to ask Jack's mom, Mary, if Jack could go fishing with him. According to Mary, when she refused, because she probably thought that was weird.
Yeah, what are you doing, you little creeper?
Arthur was polite and agreed that she had made the right decision.
No.
Which is also weird.
What's he going to do to Mary?
He doesn't do anything to Mary.
Oh, okay. God. Sorry.
4 months later, on the morning of June 4th, 1972, Jack went out to play near the Cloverdale apartment block where Arthur lived, and he never came home. Later that night, while out looking for her son, Mary Blake knocked on Arthur's door and said, where is Jack?
Have you seen Jack?
He said, I haven't seen him. No, I haven't seen him since this morning. The truth of the matter was that Arthur had taken Jack into the woods, and after stripping him naked and forcing him to run through the woods.
What?
Yeah.
What?
He caught him, molested him, and then strangled him.
You just told me you didn't molest the kids.
I know. I didn't want you to.
What? I knew he did. That's horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible.
Man, why would he do that to Jack?
I know.
Jack's his friend.
Jack was his buddy. Like, they fished together. Because Arthur's a fucking asshole.
Okay.
Later, Arthur would admit to removing the boy's heart and genitals and eating them.
Stop.
I know. The story, I told you it gets worse.
Is it true, though? Do we have facts to back that up? Or just Arthur?
I believe it just came from Arthur.
Okay.
Although Arthur was a suspect in Jack's disappearance, no action was taken due to a lack of evidence. Because he doesn't admit this stuff until later. 3 months later, when the police were still searching for Jack, 8-year-old Karen...
Oh, so they hadn't found his body yet.
No, they hadn't found his body. 8-year-old Karen Ann Hill was found dead under a bridge near Black River. She had been raped, mutilated, and strangled.
He doesn't care if it's a boy, girl,
he doesn't.
Man, woman.
No. When a police investigation revealed that Karen and Arthur had been seen together earlier that same day, Arthur became a suspect in her murder. After they received another report that Arthur was seen eating ice cream at the bridge near where the body was found, the police picked him up and took him in for questioning.
And by the way, hey, Jack, what a coincidence.
I know.
You know Jack, too.
It was only 3 months after Jack had disappeared. So, I don't know. I don't know if the police put the two and two together. He never was charged with anything regarding Jack's disappearance or murder. Arthur was interrogated at police headquarters for a full day before he surprised the police by asking them in front of his defense attorney, what's going to happen to me if I tell you something?
How'd they get an attorney so fast?
Well, it's probably
They'd have been arrested. Had somebody on retainer.
Maybe.
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. So, if he was my client, I'd been like, shut up!
Shut up. He's got nothing to say.
I would have kicked him when he said that.
I just
pinch him. After several more hours of interviews and bargaining, Arthur ended up pleading guilty to the manslaughter of Karen Ann Hill. He was later convicted and sentenced to 25 years in prison. It's a lot for a manslaughter case, don't you think?
Well, I mean,
it's not life, but yeah.
I'm just so confused. Like, he had an attorney and he just went and spilled his whole guts out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, wow.
Probably wanted to tell someone, don't you think?
Yeah.
Probably got off
He
on
wanted
it.
to get caught.
Yeah.
Or at least brag.
At least brag. Yeah.
Brag. He wanted to brag.
Yeah. He was never charged, like I mentioned, with the murder of Jack, even though he did later admit to the rape and murder, and he showed police where he had dumped the body. And I don't know why that wouldn't give them enough to convict him. Here's his body. I mean, yeah. Anyway.
Maybe it was a part of a plea.
Maybe.
I'll show you the body if you don't charge me.
He subsequently told police psychiatrists that he had returned to the gravesite.
Oh, stop. Do not.
You got ready for this? On several occasions to have sex with Jack's corpse. Yeah, he's a sick
Now we're
fuck.
adding in necrophilia.
Oh, yeah,
to
necrophilia,
this?
cannibalism, child molesting. Yeah.
He's just fucking gross.
Yeah, extremely. This is a terrible
gross
story. Absolutely. Arthur began his second jail term in the New York Penitentiary in Greenhaven. For the first 8 years he was there, he spent much of his time protecting himself from the other inmates.
Oh, I bet.
Because they found out he was a child killer. Yeah, absolutely. He was like the lowest of the low. His record shows many incidents of fighting, minor stealing offenses, lighting fires, and refusing to leave his cell. Eventually, though, he began to settle in to prison life.
He's getting older now.
Yeah, more mature maybe. He started behaving himself, and he seemed to be a model prisoner.
Stop.
During his
He's no
incarceration,
longer raping anybody, beating anybody, setting fires. Now he's a model.
Now he's like a
prisoner.
choir boy, right?
Okay, yeah.
During his incarceration, he claimed that he tried to tell the prison psychiatrist that his problems were a result of the Vietnam War, but they refused to listen because psychiatrists apparently don't listen.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the first psychiatrists to examine him was Dr. Albert Dresser. He did not consider Arthur a psychological risk.
What does that mean?
Well, his report shows that he didn't perceive any evidence of delusions, hallucinations.
Okay, he didn't diagnose him with any sort of mental illness.
Right. There was no sensory deception in Arthur. Some months later, in October 1973, another prison psychologist, Dr. McWilliams, also examined Arthur, and he carried out a series of tests, including the Bender Motor Gestalt test and the Weschler Adult Intelligence test.
Yeah.
But found no evidence of any neurological impairment. What he did find was that Arthur suffered.
Was from being fucked up?
Yeah. He suffered fits of deep depression.
Well, okay.
And
he's in prison.
Yeah. I mean, right? Prison's just depressing enough. But he also relied heavily upon fantasy as a source of satisfaction.
Coping skills.
Yeah.
Fantasy.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. His final entry in the case file was that he considered Arthur, quote, to be a normal individual.
Oh, what?
Who knows he's done wrong.
Oh.
And would like to help himself get back on the right track for his eventual return to society.
Oh, no.
Unquote.
No.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Curiously, in his file, though, an unknown person crossed out the reference to normal person in Dr. McWilliams' report and wrote the words, a psychopathic killer, above it.
Yeah.
In pencil.
Thank you.
I know. Someone was like,
Nope.
He's not normal. In 1976, Dr. Michael Boscia examined 31-year-old Arthur, and he found that he hadn't come to terms with the severity of the crimes that he did, and he constantly blamed other people for his problems. So he didn't take responsibility for anything. In his opinion, Arthur hadn't requested that first psychological exam. He didn't request it like to deal with his mental problems. He had done it merely to impress the parole board.
Okay.
The following year, this model prisoner had taken courses in locksmithing and horticulture.
Locksmithing?
Yeah.
Let's let him know.
Let's let a criminal learn locksmithing.
Be a locksmith. Okay.
I thought that was funny, too. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And he began preparing for his GED. With more than a touch of irony, he also began working with mental patients as a counselor.
Oh,
Arthur
just have
counseled other
mercy
patients.
on my soul right now.
Tell me about it. I know.
He'd be like, Hey, I know how you're feeling. Are you feeling like cutting someone's heart out?
Yeah.
I've been there.
I've been there.
This is how you cope. Like, what?
How did they let him do that?
What?
I don't know.
You must be fooling them all or something. I don't know how, but go ahead. I don't know.
I'm
so confused by this and angry.
Before I tell you more, we're going to take a break. In June 1977, yet another prison psychiatrist, Dr. Hevelawala,
sounds good.
I probably mispronounced it.
You did, I'm sure.
Gave him another psychological exam and found that although he had adapted to prison life, he had a prison routine, but he had a schizoid personality.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
He was antisocial and he had a distinct personality disorder. In addition,
what was his personality disorder?
They didn't specify. They just said it was a personality disorder. Probably like, everything you can think of. I'm sure there's a lot of things he could have been diagnosed with. Yeah. The doctor also wrote, quote, "This man does not show a good degree of evidence of successfully resolving or working out his psychosexual conflicts," end quote, which sounds like he's pretty dangerous to me.
Because when you do that shit, you can't get better. Some things cannot be turned around.
No. They can't. Absolutely
Even
not.
if you find God and Jesus, you still can't stop these sexual fantasies and desires. I mean, I don't know personally. I'm just saying, I'm guessing.
2 more years passed, and yet another report was tendered, which described Arthur as, quote, "a person of abnormal character traits with psychosexual tendencies. It must be noted that the above-mentioned complications tend to be chronic in duration. Like you said, you just can't
be like,
be cured.
I used to like to have sex with dead children.
Or cannibalize people.
Over that now.
Or, commit necrophilia.
Yeah.
Right. Basically, what most doctors were trying to say was that under normal circumstances, Arthur was a passive individual, but when subjected to stress, he became a slave to his inner sexual drives, and he was unable to stop himself from giving them full reign.
I get it. You're under stress. Mm-hmm. But
don't you want to kill someone when you're under stress?
No. Well, okay. I mean, we're recording this, but
as your attorney, I would suggest you don't answer my own question.
Everybody in life has stress. So
yes, exactly. Most of us cope with it. I mean, maybe not so well.
But yeah, okay.
But we don't murder people.
I don't.
No. I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay. Just being clear.
And regardless of these and other unfavorable psychological reports...
You do not tell me he gets out or I'll lose my mind.
Oh, okay. Well, be prepared.
What?
Arthur continued to improve himself in prison. By 1985, he had completed his high school diploma and had enrolled in college courses at Penn State University. A parole report during that same period further stated that Arthur exhibited a belligerent reaction representing a foreboding potential for a possible reenactment of his tragic behavior. It's a lot of fancy words to say he was going to
He's going to do it again.
Yes. The report went on to further criticize the prisoner for his disdain for the prison sex offender program and displaying his fury during a parole interview.
You got to be nice.
You would think that you would be on your best
play the
behavior.
Game. Just play the game.
Honestly, right? But incredibly, despite the numerous psychological reports to the contrary and the parole board's own misgivings.
Don't say it.
I'm going to say it. Arthur qualified for early release in March 1987 and was deemed to be fit to re-enter society.
What the fuck is that, Tanya?
I know. His parole officer was quite upset.
Why, bitch?
After his release, this parole officer, he worked in Binghamton County. His name was Robert T. Kent. He wrote to his superiors, get a load of this.
I quit. Fuck you. I'm moving to Hawaii to get away from this freak.
Quote, at the risk of being melodramatic, this writer considers this man to be possibly the most dangerous individual to be released to this community for many years. End quote.
Hello, people. At least somebody gets it with it. You know, I'm like getting all worked up here.
I know. No one no one heeded the warning. When Arthur was released and he was placed in the Binghamton area, the officials and residents of Waterton had made it plain and clear they didn't want him there.
Oh, yeah, they don't.
I mean, who wants this freak, right?
Get him away.
He also had been maintaining a pen pal relationship with a woman named Rose Wally.
Of course.
And indicated...
If they get married.
Oh, they do.
You're killing me here.
He told the parole board he was going to go live with her. He was probably going to marry her because his parole conditions, among other things, required him to have somewhere to go.
Right.
It restricted his movements to Broome County. He had a curfew, so he couldn't go out, between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. He couldn't partake in any alcoholic beverages. He wasn't allowed to have contact with anyone under the age of 18. And he was supposed to stay away from schools and other places where children were.
Well, that makes sense.
His stay in Binghamton proved to be a short one because nobody wanted him there. So he got approval to move to Delhi, New York. And that's when he moved in to Rose Wally's apartment. Shortly after he moved in, however, the residents of that community got wind of his presence and
they wanted him out.
They wanted him out. So he appealed to the parole board and he was sent to live in the basement of a Baptist church in Delhi until suitable accommodations could be found. He and Rose later moved to Fleischman's, New York, and moved into a large house, and Arthur obtained work with a local building contractor. So everything seems to be normal, right?
He's just fine now.
Yeah.
But he's got a woman, got a big house, got
a job. Everything seems to be going great. But within a matter of days, he was recognized at a local post office. And later that night, an angry mob.
Hell yeah, thank you.
Led by the mayor.
Oh.
They were like, he needs to go. They assembled outside his house and they demanded that he leave the area. In the following weeks, Arthur and Rose were bounced around from one area to the next until they were finally given an apartment in Rochester, New York, because, he's bound by these parole conditions. He can't just move wherever he wants. Eventually, according to Arthur, he grew tired of the parole board's interference, and he and Rose got their own apartment and new jobs and settled into their surroundings. Because what would happen is he would say, I'm having trouble here. They would find him a new place to live. So instead he just said, we're going to find a place to live.
Okay. I don't need your help.
Yes. The job that Arthur got was at a company where he was employed to pack salads in boxes.
Oh.
Seems like a different job.
Yeah.
I don't know. His life seemed stable enough until Christmas 1987, when he was 42 years old. This is when he asked his family to come to Rochester to meet Rose, and they refused.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised we're even talking to him. What?
His mood darkened when his sister informed him that the family visited her in Virginia and told her how they had returned the Christmas. And she told Arthur how his family had returned the Christmas presents that he had sent them.
Well, yeah.
Why would you tell him?
Because he can fuck off. Oh, I don't know, because he's had sex with he murdered kids. I don't know, that's why.
Yeah. I'm surprised anyone in his family is even
talking
talking
to him after everything he allegedly happened between them.
Exactly.
So.
I don't know. He became angry and ranted about how his family didn't want him.
Boo-hoo-hoo.
Boo-hoo-hoo is right.
Oh, poor me.
And he went out on his bike and rode for miles until he cooled down. Shortly after the Christmas incident, he started a relationship with another woman.
Well, what happened to Rose?
Oh, she's still around.
Oh.
He's got 2 ladies now. He must have been a charmer, Talia.
Is he good looking?
No. I mean, my standards, no. I don't know, maybe.
And they're pretty
These ladies
low.
found him hot. I mean.
Pretty low.
You bitch.
Just kidding.
But I don't know. So this new woman was Clara Neal, and she had a car, and he often would borrow her car. For a year, he maintained both relationships, and he explained to Rose that I'm just being nice to Clara so I can borrow her car.
I'm using her,
I'm using her. Yeah.
Oh, okay, honey.
Okay, great. Because he didn't want to ride his bike everywhere. On one particular evening, this is March 15th, 1988, he rode his bike to Clara's and took the car, and he drove around until he reached Lake Avenue, which is near the Genesee River. It was an industrial area, well known for its cheap sex and drug deals. As he drove slowly down the street, 27-year-old Dorothy, she went by Dotsy, Blackburn, signaled for him to stop. When he pulled over, she asked him, do you want a date? He said yes, and she directed him to park his car behind a warehouse. He told her he wanted to have mutual oral sex, and he paid her $30. She then undressed, like she got in his car, undressed, and she complied with his request. Okay, now this is what Arthur describes.
Oh, boy.
He says at that point, Dotsy bit him on the penis, drawing blood.
Why would she do that?
Thank you. He said he became enraged and bit her vagina out of revenge and squeezed her throat until she lost consciousness. He then attempted to stop the flow of blood from his damaged organ and tied Dotsy up with articles of her own clothing before driving out of town along State Route 104 to an area in Northampton Park called Salmon River. And it was one of his favorite fishing spots. Okay, so she's still alive. He told her that he was going to rape her, and she began taunting him and calling him names.
Mm-hmm. That's what you do when you're tied up.
And you're terrified for your life. Yeah. He threatened to kill her, but she continued the name calling until he just couldn't stop.
He lost it.
Yeah, he lost it.
He's stressed out.
Yeah, he took her neck in his hands and he crushed the breath out of her. He sat in the car with her body until nearly midnight, then calmly carried her through the snow to the river bridge and dropped her body into the icy river below. Because that's what you do.
Oh.
Walking back to the car, he drove back into Rochester and drove up and down Lake Avenue looking for any sign that maybe indicated people were looking for Dotsy. You know, didn't anybody miss her? I don't know how he would find out.
Right, and you're just putting yourself back into an area where you could cause suspicion.
That's why I call bullshit on a lot
I call
of what
bullshit
Arthur...
on 90% of everything he said.
Satisfied, that nobody saw me pick her up, he went to a nearby coffee shop to relax.
That's what you do.
Right. And after about an hour or so...
Go to Starbucks or whatever.
Yeah. After about an hour or so, he went back to the car. He collected Dotsy's clothes and other property, and he threw them into a dumpster bin. The following morning, after he cleaned up Clara's car, he returned it to her, and then he rode his bike home.
Thanks. Let me use your car.
Thanks. Because of his normally erratic behavior, I guess he probably disappeared a lot. Neither of these women in his life realized that there was anything different in his behavior. Plus, he suffered from these nightmares, and, so if he was acting weird, it was probably normal.
And they liked it. They liked They liked weird. They liked him.
I guess. You're probably right.
Something a little off about them, too. I'm guessing. I don't know them.
I don't know them. They're probably lovely.
Maybe
I don't know.
Not.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
In the following months, Arthur became a Lake Avenue regular, and he was well known by the local sex workers as Mitch.
Mitch.
On March 24th, about a week after Arthur murdered Dotsy, police found her body floating in the river some distance downstream from the area where she had been dumped. Her body was well preserved by the icy waters because it's March, but it also removed any evidence that might link her with her killer. The one thing that they did notice about her body was there was like a chunk that had been torn from her vagina. And so that's where he bit her.
Bit or tore a chunk?
Bit. He said he bit her.
You just said tore a chunk.
Well, that's where there was a chunk missing.
Okay.
I don't know how he did it. He said he bit her.
No, I believe he bit her, but that's a bite. That's more, that's like, never mind. Let's just move on.
I don't know what it looked like, girl.
That's like, okay.
Arthur then contained his urge to kill for several months.
Oh.
But when Arthur's boss learned why Arthur had been in prison, because apparently he didn't know, he fired him. And that triggered off Arthur's next wave of violence. The second victim, well, this is actually the fourth victim, but because you have to count Jack and...
Well, what about Vietnam, too? But,
yeah, who knows,
whatever.
Right?
Another victim.
Yes. She was a part-time sex worker named Anna Steffen, who Arthur had picked up and taken to the river near Driving Park Bridge. Arthur claimed that she had offered him sex for $20, but when he was unable to get an erection, she began making fun of him. Because again, this is what people do.
I guess.
I don't believe it.
Everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
They're all just bullying Arthur.
Making fun of him, calling him names.
Addie.
Right. I mean, it goes back to childhood.
Mm-hmm.
He became angry and punched her, which made her fall to the ground. Trying to get away from him, she crawled into the water, but he went in after her, and he held her under the water until she drowned. He later told police that he couldn't be bothered trying to conceal her body, and he just let it float down the river.
I'm surprised that he just drowned. Like, that's all he did.
Me too. You're right. She became caught up in debris downstream, where, because of the warmer conditions, her body rapidly decomposed. From that time on, he tried to resist the temptation to kill. He got another job working nights, packing salads for a company called G&G Food Services.
He's packing salads again?
Yeah, he's packing salads again. And at night, so maybe this kept him off the street. For a while it did, because he didn't kill again until June 1989. So it was maybe like, a year and 3 months.
Oh, so we know.
Yeah.
So he says.
So he says. He was 44 at the time. This next victim was different than the first two in that she wasn't a sex worker. She was a 58-year-old homeless woman named Dorothy Keller. And I'm going to call her Keller because we already have Dotsie and Dorothy in our story. Arthur had met Keller when she worked as a waitress in a diner that he frequented. The two struck up a friendship, which quickly turned into an affair.
What the hell?
Dude, he's a ladies' man.
This is...
It's crazy, right? One afternoon, Arthur was on his way to the river to fish when he stopped to talk to Keller. When she found out where he was going, she asked, "Can I tag along?" He said, "Sure."
Who wants to tag along fishing?
I don't know.
Anyway.
According to Arthur, they spent the morning fishing and having sex.
Who does that?
I don't
Just
know.
wants fishing and having sex.
And they're out in the open, like along this riverbank.
Fish and had some sex by the river. Typical
it's
day.
daylight, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
You tell me a true story. What
I've
the
never
hell is
seen
that?
people do that, but okay. I'm sure people are doing it.
All right.
I don't know. They were there until midday when it started to rain. They huddled under a crude shelter that he had built. And while there, they got into an argument about Keller stealing money and about his relationship with Clara and Rose, because apparently she was jealous that Clara and Rose were in his life. I don't know. He claims that when Keller threatened to tell the other women about the affair, he became angry.
He got upset. He got stressed.
Extreme.
And he had no other choice but to...
He picked up a log and beat her on the side of the head, killing her instantly. Yeah. After hiding her body under a fallen tree, he returned home. He later told police that he returned to the spot.
Stop. Do not say he had sex with her.
Yeah, several months later.
What?
He didn't have sex with her. He removed her skull and he dumped it in the river.
Okay.
I know.
Well, I mean, not that, okay, that's...
He probably did because that's what he fucking does all the time, so I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
No, instead he just put her head in the river? Because that's not disgusting either.
Maybe, yeah. Probably,
I don't know.
Didn't want her identified. I don't know.
I don't know. Fishermen eventually found Keller's remains, but Arthur was never connected with this woman, even though he had been seen with her regularly and often went to this fishing spot.
And let's not forget his history.
No, but nobody put two and two together. The next to die was another Lake Avenue sex worker named Patricia Ives, and she was known on the street as Crazy Patty.
Oh, no.
I want to be known as Crazy Tanya.
Well, you are. We just don't say it to your face.
Oh, okay. He claims that she offered him sex for $25, and when he approached the same... Wait, I'm so sorry. He claimed that she offered him sex for $25 when he approached the same diner where Dorothy Keller had worked. He agreed and they went to a construction site. While they were having sex, Arthur said he caught Patty reaching for his wallet.
Okay.
And he pushed her hard against the ground. When she began to cry, he anally raped her and began strangling her until she went limp.
These poor women.
I know. He hid her body under some scrap of construction material. He waited until dark and then he went home.
He's so cruel.
Oh, he's awful. I told you were going to hate him before this episode's over.
I just feel so bad for the women.
I know.
I mean,
2 months later, he killed another sex worker named Frances Brown in similar circumstances, except in this instance, he claimed to have choked Frances with his penis. He choked her, literally choked her to death.
I'm calling bullshit.
You know?
Oh, so during oral sex?
Yes, during oral sex.
Oh, man.
I know. What a way to go, huh, Talia?
What the fuck is that? That's horrible. I hope. I just hope he's lying.
I hope he's lying, too.
It's horrible.
And he said he continued to have sex with her after she died.
Oh, okay.
I do believe that.
Can we... okay.
You're not stopping.
Do you have any good news? That's horrible.
I know
That's really horrible.
No, seriously, it is horrible.
That's horrible.
Yes.
Okay.
He then dumped her body down a nearby embankment. Following Frances's murder, the media began to pick up on the story of the murdered 5 Rochester, New York women. This all happened within 18 months, and they called the unknown perpetrator the Rochester Night Stalker, the Rochester Strangler, and the Genesee River Killer. Some even suggested that the crimes were similar to the Green River killings in Seattle and speculated that the killer had merely just changed locations. Like maybe, because they hadn't caught Gary Ridgway by then. For the next victim, which
how many more we got?
Well, this is the 8th victim, and he did have a total of 13 victims.
Okay.
I have a few more to tell you about. Arthur again chose someone close to home. June Stotts was a friend of Arthur and Rose and regularly was a visitor at their home. She was also mildly mentally challenged. Arthur had seen June sitting near the river on a warm November day.
They're all just hanging out by this river.
I know. And he said to her, do you want to come for a ride with me? She accepted, and they drove down to a local beach. She accepted, and they drove down to a local beach where they played in the sand and fed the birds before they walked to a deserted area and laid down on the ground to have sex. Everybody's just dying to have sex with Arthur.
By a river.
Beach,
whatever.
A beach. At some point during sex, Arthur claims he made an innocent comment about her not being a virgin, and she started screaming. He then held his hand over her mouth to silence her, and then he soon realized he had accidentally suffocated her. Whoops. He then cut her open with his knife so that she would decompose quicker, and he covered her with a blanket and some nearby brush, and then left her.
Doesn't he have blood all over him and stuff?
You would think so. That's why I don't know. I don't know how to feel about him saying these things. You would think, like, there's nobody else in this area. It sounds like it's daylight.
Shit. I can't even put gum on the sidewalk without getting a ticket.
Right? I don't know.
Not that I have.
Well, guess what? He did something horrible to her. He later claimed that he removed her vagina and some of her organs and he ate them. I don't know. Is he trying to shock
where do you
police? I don't know.
How did he okay.
I don't know.
What? I call bullshit.
Yeah.
I hope so. Like it's what?
I know.
I can only say what the fuck so many times.
I know it's bad. It's just bad.
And why would you admit that? Like,
I know that's what I'm saying. Like, is he trying to shock?
Probably.
Like the police or
he did. I don't know.
Maybe he did do it. I don't know. That same month, Arthur picked up Maria Welch from Lake Avenue. That's where the sex workers were usually found. And he took her to a small beach near the banks of the Genesee River where they argued over a suitable price before they began having sex. Again, like Patty Ives, he claimed that Maria tried to reach for his wallet.
It's like that. Yeah, they're all just robbing him.
I know. And so he snapped and he strangled her. He later changed his story, and he told investigators that he had become angry and killed her when he realized she was menstruating. Because that's her fault.
Mm-hmm.
He drove further down the road, next to the river, and dumped her body in some bushes. Who knows what the truth is?
Yeah.
On November 11th, 1989, police investigators from the 60-strong Serial Crimes Unit identified the body of Frances Brown. Incredibly, no one in the newly formed task force uncovered the fact that a known sex offender and child killer was still on parole living in their midst. I don't know. It's before computers were really popular, too. I guess I can't blame, you know. I mean, today you'd all know. They'd all know, you know.
Hopefully.
2 weeks later, on November 23rd, while police were examining the decomposing body of June Stotts, Arthur killed again. As before, the pattern was set. He picked Darlene Trippi up from the Lake Avenue area and drove to an isolated car park. After the money was paid, they had oral sex, but Arthur failed to get an erection. He claimed she became frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Was calling him names.
Oh, there we go again.
Right.
The teasing and taunting.
Mm-hmm. He said that enraged him. He choked her until she lay dead under him. He dumped her body in open woodland. The following month, he killed Elizabeth Gibson in a similar fashion when she got into his car to keep warm while he was getting coffee from a diner. They had oral sex in the car, and again, he claimed she tried to take his wallet, got angry, he strangled her. Arthur later told police that she had struggled so hard that she had broken the gear shift in his car. He disposed of Elizabeth's body in an area near Wayne County that he hadn't used before, as he feared that the police were getting too close. Seems like he did dump people like in similar areas. So, I mean, it was stupid. He was stupid. Thankfully, because that's how people get caught. 2 more weeks passed, and even though the police were out in full force in the Lake Avenue area, Arthur picked up an attractive girl named June Cicero and took her to another isolated area and attempted sex with her before he strangled her. He dumped her body off a bridge near the Salmon River. 2 days later, he returned to the dump site with a small handsaw.
Okay.
And that's when he said he cut her vagina from her frozen body and he ate it.
It was just, okay.
I don't understand.
All right.
The final victim.
Yes, please.
Yes. Was another sex worker. Only she was different than the others because she was a black woman named Felicia Stevens. Didn't fit his normal profile. When he was interviewed later, he said he really couldn't remember too many details about killing her other than the fact that she was a black woman and that he strangled her. He dumped her body near those of June Cicero and Dorothy Blackburn. And Dorothy Blackburn was his first victim that he had picked up, like one of the first sex workers. It was this desire to keep the bodies where he could find them again that led to his capture. On Wednesday, January 3rd, 1990, 45-year-old Arthur drove to Salmon Creek in Northampton Park to visit June Cicero's body. He was aroused at the thought of having sex with her corpse.
Okay.
He hadn't been following the progress of the serial task force that had become prime news on TV and in the newspapers, which I'm really surprised because a lot of killers get off on that.
Yeah, and I thought you said that he went to like some park, like a parking lot, and dumped one because he thought they were getting too close, but he's not following it.
Yeah, he's not following it.
He doesn't have clippings and stuff like they do.
No, he didn't follow it that close.
He's just visiting the body now.
And if he had followed the case, he would have known that the police surveillance was in and around the Northampton Park. That had increased dramatically. They were out in full force. You know, they really wanted to catch this killer. He was happy that there were no cars parked where he wanted to stop on a bridge overlooking the creek so he could view June's body while he ate his lunch. So I guess he could get on this bridge, and I guess he could see her.
While he ate his lunch.
He ate his lunch. Just casually, I'm going to, bring my brown bag and I know. He didn't realize that a police helicopter had been checking the Salmon River and had not only seen his car parked on the bridge, but also the outline of the body under the ice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. As the helicopter approached, Arthur noticed it. He left the area and drove along Highway 31, and he turned left at Route 259, heading toward the town of Spencerport, with the helicopter following him.
You're not going to get away from the helicopter,
No, they followed him this entire time.
Stop.
The helicopter crew then called in 2 patrol cars to follow Arthur and intercept him. They followed him to an address in Spencerport where the car was parked, and Arthur got out and entered the Wedgwood adult home where his wife worked.
Oh, hey, honey.
Hey, honey, hi. The police entered the home and asked the attendant about the man who had just entered, and they told him he went down into the basement. The police followed and approached Arthur in the basement, and they asked for his ID. All casual about it. He took his ID out and said, "Hey, what's up? What do you guys want?"
Was I speeding? Did I go through a stop sign?
What you doing here? They then asked him to step outside to answer some questions. Later, he was interviewed in the car by Paul DeSillis, who was one of the task force investigators, and he was asked why he had been at Salmon Creek.
Eating lunch.
Yeah, but Arthur said, well, I'd been out driving, and I stopped to pee. But then when he saw the helicopter, he got shy, and he decided to sit in his car and pee in a bottle instead.
Well,
because
guys do that sometimes, so.
But God forbid the, helicopter see him pee outside. It's probably a crime. I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It is.
For several hours.
You can't just piss outside, Tanya.
Well, I don't do it.
I know, but you're a lawyer. You're like, it's probably a crime. Yes, it
probably
is.
A crime.
Just going to let you know.
Thank you, Talia. Detective DeSillis questioned Arthur for hours. Questioned him extensively. about his movements that morning, but found that Arthur had a pretty convincing story. While they were talking, Arthur told him about his earlier conviction for the child murders. Hey, guess what?
I like kids better.
How do you bring that up casually? I don't know. Detective DeSillis continued to ask him questions about his wives, his jobs,
his girlfriends,
his sexual habits, and even asked him details of the attacks on Jack Blake and Karen Hill, those children. Throughout the questioning, he was completely cooperative, even though he hadn't been arrested, and he was talking to the police voluntarily. Later that night, he was released and he went home, unaware that his house was now under constant surveillance. The following morning, the detectives picked him up early again, because they're like, we need you to come back to the station.
Couple more questions. We just got to
clarify.
Fill in some blanks.
There's some inconsistencies we need your help with. Again, Arthur complied with their request, and he went with them. They drove him to an area near a golf course where he had supposedly had a liaison with a sex worker who had said, he often took her to this area, and that's where he picked up a lot of sex workers. When Arthur agreed with that assertion, he's like, yeah, I do. He was asked to accompany the detectives to their office where an official interrogation was conducted. Later that same evening, Arthur positively identified photographs of the 11 victims, and he confessed to their murders.
Thank God. Okay.
He then accompanied the police to various grave sites, and later that night, after 12 straight hours of interrogation, Arthur was officially charged with the Genesee River killings. At his arraignment, Arthur followed his court-appointed attorney's advice and pled innocent on all charges, and it was strongly rumored that he was going to raise the insanity defense. For the next several months, Arthur was given a multitude of tests by numerous psychiatrists, one of which was Dr. Krauss, who compiled an extensive report which suggested that Arthur was, quote, an emotionally unstable, learning disabled, genetically impaired, biochemically disordered, neurologically damaged individual, psychologically alienated from significant others during his entire life, venting his frustration and rage, mixed with fear and defiance, in a lifetime of ever more violent and destructive aggression, which ultimately turned to overpowering murderous fury.
AKA fucked up. That's his diagnosis.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, he just...
So, tell me what happens to him, please. Yes. Please.
Well, he went on trial because he said he was innocent.
I hope he didn't take the stand.
It was extensively covered by the media.
Oh, I bet.
The only defense witness was not Arthur. It was Dr. Dorothy Lewis, who testified that Arthur had been hideously traumatized as a child.
Well, maybe that's true.
Which left him with multiple
a lot of people are,
personality disorder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dissociative disorder.
Really? Yes. Okay. She also cited post-traumatic stress disorder caused by his war experiences as a root cause for his behavior, which it probably contributed.
Yeah, but a lot of people went through shit in life, and they don't do this shit show, whatever. I can't even fucking...
You're so angry.
I'm so angry.
You can't even talk.
There's no excuse for it.
I know. I don't know why one person goes through the same thing and they don't end up killing 13 people. But anyway, Arthur acted like a good boy, and he made sure to play the part sitting in court.
How can you act like a goddamn good boy?
We sat there.
I'm sorry. Me, I only ate the vagina. No, you can't be a good boy.
He tried to give the impression that he had advanced psychosis to the jury, which I don't know. But do you have a crazy look on your face or something? But the jury was less than impressed because it only took them 6.5 hours.
I took them 6.5 hours?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of victims.
Yeah. They returned a unanimous guilty verdict and recommended a sentence of 250 years in jail.
Okay.
In September of 1999, Arthur was found to be selling his paintings and autographs on the internet from within prison. The New York State Department of Correctional Services temporarily suspended his art privileges after learning that his artwork and autographs were listed for sale on eBay.
What?
People were buying this shit. People that buy this shit just really creep me out.
How is he getting out of prison?
I don't know. Somebody was probably smuggling it out for him.
Okay.
And then taking a cut.
Yeah, I've seen that on Orange is the New Black, something like that.
Yeah, right? They had the panties in Orange is the New Black. Yeah. He received disciplinary actions for the breach, which included being locked in a cell for extended periods. So do you want to know where Arthur is today?
Yes, I do.
Well, he's dead.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
He died on November 10th, 2008 of cardiac arrest.
How old was he?
He was a whopping 63. He died young. But
That's young.
That is young. But yeah.
Too long for him, though. Too long for him.
I know, too long for him.
Too long for him.
Exactly.
Asshole. Horrific excuse for life, waste of oxygen.
Mm-hmm. This was a tough one.
Yeah, I know. I just sat through it.
Yes, that's the end, Leah. There's no more victims.
I mean, I feel bad saying this, but thank you for ending it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
A lot. That's sad.
Right. It was
horrible.
very sad.
But I mean, I don't mean to make light of it. It's
it was terrible.
That's how we cope.
Yes, and I laugh when I'm nervous or uncomfortable, so that doesn't help. You know, I'm not giggling because it's a hilarious story.
No, it's just ridiculous.
Right.
His lies.
Yeah, his lies were stupid. And
Hate him. Put him on our hate list.
Dumb. You know, thank God he was dumb, though, Talia, because that's how he got caught.
Yeah, well, it took a long time.
It did.
A lot of people lost their
lives.
He
moved a lot, though. I mean, he was killing people, like, left and right.
Yeah.
So, thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of Crimes and Consequences.
Thank you.
And if you haven't done so already, please hit like or subscribe.
Both?
Both, please. And please share this episode with all of your friends.
Tell everybody. Tell everybody, because we love doing this. And we love you guys, and your friends are going to appreciate it.
And until our next episode.
Don't kill each other.
Bye.
Bye.